Chairman White renews his motion. Any discussion on the bill? Representative Pearson.
Thank you, Speaker. Chairman, we have a lot of blighted properties that I know are being worked on and purchased by our land bank. Have you been in touch with the folks in Shelby County and who are running our land bank for the city or the county, related to this? And what's their take on it? Because my concern is we want these properties to be rehabbed. We want them to be cared for and taken care of. And if it's possible to use fewer taxpayer dollars to get access to the land that's then going to be reused in the communities that really do need a lot of work when it comes to blight, this could be increasing the cost of us getting our communities to look the ways that we want for them to, particularly communities that are lower income and that have had a whole lot of really international developers coming into our communities and abandoning their properties.
Chairman White, you're recognized.
Yeah, thank you, and thank you for that. And you're absolutely, I lost my line of sight here. Okay, you're right. Thank you. This is brought to me by the National Preservation Act of Memphis, the one that deal with this. Yeah, this is something, and I've worked on this particular legislation for several years. So what we're mainly doing, this is a Supreme Court decision. I think the city of Memphis that we represent has about 19,000 pieces of property, the land bank. And so what this legislation, as well as the previous legislation, has done, it's a way that we can address the blighted property to get it back on the tax rolls. And so, for example, if you live next door to a piece of property that is blighted and you can't find the owner and you can't do anything about it, it's bringing down your property values, that you as a citizen or a government entity can then go to circuit court, chancery court, or the environmental court and bring suit and say, this property is hurting my property values. The judge can then appoint a receiver, and the receiver is someone that, say, has the money or the wherewithal to go ahead and reclaim that property, and then the receiver puts a lien out on his expenses, plus he also has to pay back the back property taxes. And so the receiver can bring that land back up to value where it can then be put on the open market. If it is put on the open market and sold, then the owner gets any excess of the sale after all liens are satisfied, okay? And so this is a way that we can address blighted property. So yeah, comes from, to answer your question specifically, this comes from our city and our county. We have a land bank in the Shelby County, Madison County, and Davidson County all have a land bank, and I think there's some others. But this is a way to get the property back on the tax rolls so that it doesn't bring down property values.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you so much for the explanation, because one of the questions I did have was related to reasonable liens. And one of the pieces of language that we're changing here is to go from direct and indirect costs to reasonable. And so what effect will that have on people being able to really change these blighted properties around?
Chairman White.
From what I understand, the reasonable, that is fair market value. What is happening is when someone wants to come in and then reclaim it, and if it's put up for sale, the land bank, before the Supreme Court decision last year, said they could come in and low bid and it would go into the government land bank. This says, the Supreme Court said, no, they got to bid at fair market value like everyone else.
Representative Pearson.
Thank you. Thank you for answering the questions. Sponsor, my fear is that this will decrease the amount of properties that our city or county really starts to work on that are blighted. And while I understand, and I have to go look at the Supreme Court decision that you're articulating right now, I think being able to access more properties and having our counties or cities to be able to have access to more properties and pay for them is really important. And while I understand the market value and wanting for that to be the case, in some of these cases, people aren't bidding at all, and so that could just take a whole lot of money from our city and our county. So I appreciate you explaining it, though, because I know blight is a significant issue in our district, in my district, and in our county as well. Thank you.
Representative Parkinson.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker.